Starliner Media. Starliner Media presents Music Night at the Majestic with your host, Michael Boswell.
All right, time once again for Music Night at the Majestic, and with us tonight, Paul Collins. Paul, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here. Thank you, Michael.
Well, you say that now, Paul. We'll see how you feel once we wrap this thing up.
Go ahead.
You've got the new record out, and stand back and take a look. And
stand back and take a good look.
Good look.
Stand back and take a good look. It's a mouthful. I'm sorry about that.
We often say on the show, every musician's journey starts somewhere. So for you, what was it that got you into music in the first place?
I always say, and I'm pretty, I'll stand by this. I got into a small taxi cab in Saigon, Vietnam, on a very rainy day, which is not unusual there. And the driver turned on the radio, and Big Girls Don't Cry came on. And that kind of did it for me.
I can fully understand that. Now tell me this. Yeah. Was it the music? Was it the harmony? Was it, what was it?
I think it was really when they hit that chorus. When they hit that chorus, Big Girl, I was like, oh boy, now we're talking. And then, of course, the next song that was right up there was Lightning Strikes by Lou Christie. So those were, you can tell that I'm a big pop hook guy. That's what I love.
Who would you cite as your biggest influences? Because I mean, in the songs that you write, you've got great hooks, strong melodies. Who are the people that had the biggest influence on you?
It's a combination, because I think a lot of musicians, obviously, depending on what home they grew up in, but a lot of them, their parents played a part. What their parents liked, kind of was like the first thing they would hear. And in my house, it was a couple of different things. My father was a huge Hank Williams fan, and I am too, and a Ray Charles fan, and I am too. And my mother was a Jacques Brel is alive and well in Paris, and believe it or not, Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire. So those records were kind of like the early records I heard. And then the next stop, aside from the music that I discussed already, was AM radio circa 1968, 1969. I was living in Long Island, and I listened to WABC, Cousin Brucey, Harry Harrison every single night. That's how I went to sleep. And that was basically the best of late 50s and 60s rock and roll. And that included everything from Burt Bacharach to Glenn Campbell to the Who to Devil with the Blue Dress On, who am I talking about? Devil with Mitch Ryder, the Buckinghams, the Supremes, you name it, the Beach Boys, all those bands, the Kinks, the Stones, obviously the Beatles and the Stones, Build Me Up Buttercup, all those songs were part of the cauldron that I grew up listening to. And, Hang On Snoopy and the Red Baron and all those songs, they were all part of my DNA. And I didn't really know how the Monkees, we can speak for an hour about all that. That was, to me, the golden era of rock and roll. Now, every age group has their, era that they feel is the golden age. And for me, it's that. And personally, I feel lucky that it was, because it's pretty hard to beat that era in terms of songwriting. I mean, it's just Patsy Cline. I mean, the list, you can't. It's just so amazing. So those are the artists that I try to emulate, live up to, and And that's what I learned in the Nerves. The Nerves, one of the single greatest things that the Nerves had was an impeccably high bar, high level of criteria. Good was barely good. If it wasn't excellent, if it wasn't A++, kind of like, yeah, okay, keep at it.
Yeah.
So now these are hard things to achieve, and a lot of times it's very frustrating. And making an album for me is always traumatic because I want to reach that bar. And you can kid yourself, you can tell yourself anything you want to tell you. But like I said, like the Willie Nelson, a good song is a good song, and a good song is a good song. You can't fake that. There's an expression I like to use. When you squint your eyes, I use squinting my ears. And at the end of the day, the truth is going to surface to the top.
Yep.
So, and that's why I feel especially good about this record, because I know in my heart there's a real high margin of good songs on this record that I know are good for various reasons. Two of them, because they were written by people that I know are great writers, Jack Lee and Peter Case. Other ones because they're mine, but they've stood the test of time, and I know in my heart they're good. Now, how good is that's always debatable.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, you talk about the Nerves. So with you and Jack and Peter, 3 songwriters, all very strong. That had to be a great experience because you alluded to it. Yeah, you've got we'll say friendly competition, if you will, where you're trying
No,
to
it
do.
It was not friendly. It was cutthroat competition. It's fine.
Okay, I was trying to be nice.
No, the thing
that
is,
has to.
I will interject there. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that that has to really drive your skill though beyond what it would be in a different, more laid back situation.
Well, listen, we all know this to one extent or another. It's like anything. It's like your dad telling you, "Come on, you can do better," or yourself telling you, pushing yourself. Athletes do it. Artists do it. A lot of competitive people do it. They push themselves to get to the top level that they can achieve. Now, our philosophy kind of was, shoot for the stars. And even if you get close, it's better than if you don't shoot for the stars and you get even less close. So I think, the one nice thing, first of all, when I showed up in San Francisco at the ripe age of just barely 18, and I wanted to do this kind of music, I was living in New York at the time. Nobody played this kind of music. All the auditions I went to were either for jazz fusion, jazz rock, or jamming, or this, that, and the other thing, which I have nothing to say about that, good or bad. It just wasn't what I wanted to do. And when I got to San Francisco, and basically on my 3rd day there, I meet Jack Lee, who plays me Hanging on the Telephone, which literally blows the back of my head off. And I go, my God, this is what I've been looking for. And the odds of that are tremendous. And then working with him and Peter, but especially Jack, because he really was the leader of the band, and he had more songs written, and they were great songs. Jack's whole philosophy was make it so you can't punch a hole in it. Make it bulletproof. That was the expression, bulletproof. Every iota of that song has gone over by you, so that if anybody has anything to say, it's going to be tough. So, but as hard he was, like, a parent in terms of reaching a certain level, he also was totally supportive and loved the joy of anybody creating something was good. I remember when I showed him Working Too Hard, he had a big smile on his face. All right, Collins, you did it. You nailed it, man. He was so happy to see somebody, arrive at that level. So he was not, he wasn't jealous or anything. He, and I found this, especially in the beat. I don't mention the beat as much because I guess maybe the Nerves to me was my first effort. It was all for one and one for all. And the beat was really my band, and I was really hustling my stuff. But in the beat, I realized there were so many people, because we were thrown into the major leagues with Bill Graham and Columbia Records. There were a lot of people out there that were really insecure about their position, and they would not give you any benefit of the doubt. They really wanted to trample on anybody to make sure that they were on top. And that went as far as, like, at shows, they would take bandwidths out of the sound system, so the opening act could not sound good, or they wouldn't give you room to move on stage. They were really threatened. Now, the really great ones that we met, like, let's say, Benny Goodman, they were totally secure in what they did. And they'd come up to you and they'd have a big smile. I remember he met us. He's like, "Hey, how you doing, lads?" We met him when we were doing our first album. Or Roy Rogers, we did a TV show with him, and we got off the stage playing "Don't Wait Up," and he comes up to me. He's like 80, or I don't know how old he is. "Yeah, don't wait up for me. All right, kid, very nice." They were totally like vaudevillian ethic of, this is show business and we all support each other. So there were two classes of people. And I really have, especially in my later years, I try to remind myself, be like those guys, really, be secure in what you're doing and be friendly to people, look them in the eye, be in the present. When you say hello to somebody, say hello to them. Don't, because I've spent many years, trying to get anywhere but where I was.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned the beat. Eddie Money, how did you guys cross paths, and how did he become such a supporter?
What is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. I mean, and truth is stranger than fiction. Okay, we're in San Francisco, the Nerves. We cannot get a live show to save our lives. Now, in San Francisco, like in a lot of cities, every Sunday in San Francisco is the Chronicle, and the entertainment section was called the Pink section. So you'd get that Pink section. You wouldn't. We didn't read the news. We just grabbed the Pink section, and we went to the back to see who was playing where, and to see if there was any remote possibility of, like, trying to get on one of these shows. And I kept seeing over and over and over, Eddie Money at the Long Branch, Eddie Money at the Long Branch, which was in Berkeley. And we lived in San Francisco. We didn't have a car. And to tell you the truth, even though I was a New Yorker and kind of, seasoned, traveled all around the world with my family, getting to Berkeley was like going to another country. You had to get on BART, and it was like really unfamiliar territory. And he lived in Oakland. So I said, look, I'm going to call this Eddie Money guy up and see if maybe we can get a gig. So I call him up out of the blue, and I tell him who I am. And I say, "I'm Paul Collins." He says, "Where are you from?" "I'm from New York." "All right, man, come on over," because Eddie's from New York. He's like, "All right, you're a New Yorker. I'm going to help you out." So I come over, and I was like, how the hell am I going to get to Oakland? I had to go by myself. I was like, "Okay, Collins, tell us how it goes." And I get out there to his house, and he's got a cool place. He's like, I don't know, 5-10 years older than me. He's a young man. He's got a hot band. He's doing it, and I'm like, wow, this guy's totally cool. And I bring him we had the 45 at that point, and I play him hanging on the telephone. And he's like, "Yeah, you guys are really good. That's a great song." And then he's like, "Listen, man, we got to stick together." And he said, he puts us on gigs. Now, we open up for Eddie, and the crowd his crowd is like, who the hell are these guys? They were not buying it. In fact, the last show we did with Eddie Money, we played this place out in Oakland somewhere, and the owner threw us out of the club and wouldn't even let us back in to wait for Eddie to finish his set. We had to wait in the parking lot for 2 hours because he had 2 more shows to do because we went out there with him in his van. So we had to live. I mean, I would think about that. The guy said, "No, these guys are not allowed in the club." I mean, who does that? They did. So we sat in the parking lot and we waited, and we went home. And then I didn't see or hear anything from Eddie Money because our paths parted. And then I'm in Los Angeles, and the Nerves have broken up, and I'm rehearsing with Stephen Huff, and I'm not sure if it might have been the full band with Michael Ruiz and Larry Whitman. But anyway, we're rehearsing beat stuff. And I just say, look, I'm going to go out and get some smokes and some beers. And I go out, I go around the corner. We were rehearsing at the Mask, the famous punk club in Hollywood. And I go around the corner, I guess on Hollywood Boulevard, and there's a Peaches record store there. Remember Peaches?
Mm-hmm.
From the Wayback Machine? Anyway, so there's a Peaches there, and I walk by. It's got a big window on the street, and I see Eddie Money is in there doing an It store because Baby Hold On is now a hit. And I go, once I saw that and I heard it on the radio, I go, well, that's another guy I'm never going to hear from again. He's got a hit single now. He's not going to remember Little Paul Collins. So I go in and I try to get his attention. The minute he sees me, Paulie, how are you, man? Hold on, wait till I'm finished and we'll go out and smoke a joint or whatever. So he comes over to my house. And I'm like, you got to understand. I mean, even probably today, if Mick Jagger walked into my apartment, these are guys doing what I am dreaming about 28 hours a day. I'll cram an extra 4 hours in of dreaming about it. And so, of course, I'm just completely enthralled by everything they do. And to me, they're like gods. I mean, that's where I wanted to go. So he comes to my house. I play him at the time I played it to him. I had this song called The Mystery of Life. And it's exactly like Let Me Into Your Life, but it says The Mystery of Life. And he goes, The Mystery of Life, that's bullshit, man. Come on, let's get something cool. Let me into your life. That's it. And we start singing the song. And it sounds great. And he's singing with me. And I'm going, God, I got a guy with a hit record singing with me. And then he says, you know what? Let's call up the president of Columbia and play it for him. And I'm like dying. I'm going, no, come on. No, you're the president of Columbia Records, God times 10. And he calls the guy up, Al, what the hell, Al Tellerman or something like that. I forget what his last name was. He's a famous record company guy. And he goes, hey, Al. And now Al has to take Eddie's call because Eddie's got a hit single. Yeah, Eddie, what's up, man? What do you need? And he says, Al, I'm here with Al Teller. I'm here with my buddy, Paul. We just wrote this great song. We want to play it for you on the phone. And he goes, Eddie, I'm in the pool with my kids, man. Can't this wait until Monday? And he goes, no, I'm going to do it now. And so we sit there and we play him Let Me Into Your Life on the phone. The guy's probably, his kids are screaming in the back. That's great, Eddie. That's great. Yeah. Call me Monday. So for about a year straight, and this is the time of, or the era of the demo. People would spend, I'm not kidding you, they would spend 30, 40, 50 grand making a demo because that would get you $1 million record deal. So demo, it was everybody, hey, check out my demo, oh yeah, we did this at the record plant, we did this at, whatever, the media station, power plant, all these really expensive demos, they're basically records. And so for a year, there's all these parties and stuff, and Eddie whips out my cassette demo that we've made on a realistic tape machine at home that's as crude as you can possibly get. He goes, yeah, that's great, but I want to play you the best new American songwriter there is. And he puts this tape on, and people are going, yeah, Eddie, come on, give me a break. And so finally, Bruce Botnick hears the tape, and he goes, wow, these guys are really good. And Bruce facilitates a meeting with the same guy, Al Teller, to come and hear us play on a Saturday afternoon at the Mask. And he walks in, we play him 10 songs, and he turns to Bruce and he goes, okay, sign him, and leaves. And that was it. After years and years of beating our heads against the wall, especially with the Nerves, in 15 seconds, we get a record deal with Columbia Records. And that was all due to Eddie. We got Eddie's producer, Bruce Botnick, was a better producer for a young rock and roll band doing their first album you could not have asked, because he basically just acted like a piece of glass and put our sound onto tape and beautifully and analogically and digitally perfectly. And then we got his manager, Bill Graham, and his record company and his lawyer. I mean, it was like one-stop shopping. You need a deal, you need a lawyer, you need a producer, you need a manager. Here you go, pal.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I mean, really, total LA Cinderella story.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And so I obviously have a very special place for Eddie in my heart. And, I'm sad that he's, these guys, as we get older, Eddie's gone, Jack Lee's gone, it's, my mom's gone. So, that's what old age, you have to learn to deal with that.
Exactly. Well, tell me this. So, with the aspirations of, the of success in the music business and everything, what was it like when you were on American Bandstand?
Well, that's funny because I was just thinking about him, Dick Clark. Um, there's a lot of things you do when you're young that you have no idea how big a deal they are until later. And that was one of them. And later, many years later, people are going, "You were on American Bandstand, man? You don't know how heavy that is." At the time, it was like we had to be there at 8 a.m. We were flying to New York the next day to go on our European tour. And it was just like, we've probably been up all night doing God knows what, and I'll let you fill in the blanks. And we show up there, and it's wham, bam, thank you, man. His crew was, I think they said there were two of the best TV crews in the world were the guys who did the NFL football games and Dick Clark's people. They were the best. They didn't get any better than that. They were flawless at what they did. And so we did it. And thankfully, I have the interview, which is fabulous, which you can see on my website of Dick Clark interviewing us. And he is another guy like Benny Goodman or some of the other Roy Rogers. Total pro. Talks to the band, talks to everybody in the band, doesn't just talk to the lead singer, talks to the guitar player, talks to the drummer, talks to the band. And I fortunately had the presence of mind to learn from these people. That's a pro. That's a guy who prides himself in his professionalism and knows, that the best way to do things is to do it the right way, to be all inclusive, to be a gentleman, to smile, to say please and thank you and all that stuff, and not run anybody down. There's no point in that. We don't need that.
Nope. Now tell me this, on a lesser scale, I remember, being a fan of the Beat, watching WKRP in Cincinnati, and they had the poster of you guys on there. Did you see that when that first aired?
No,
what was your reaction?
I don't think I saw it when it first aired. I think, also it was, I guess the right word to use is bittersweet. Of course, we got signed to Columbia Records. We were managed by Bill Graham. We really thought that literally in 10 or 15 minutes, we were going to be superstars. I mean, it was inconceivable. Why wouldn't we be? We had everything you could possibly want. We had the biggest record company in the world. We had one of the biggest managers in the world, and we had a great band. But, it was not exactly the right time. A lot of things happened, which I don't need to go into, business things that happened to a lot of acts that it's not just how good you are in this business. It's a business. So you have to have certain business things. And the radio wasn't ready maybe for this kind of stuff. And there was resistance at this level or that level. And we were constantly plagued with, you didn't sell enough. You had to sell. When we got dropped from Columbia Records, the reason why we got dropped is we got a call and they said, Columbia Records has released every single band on the label that has sold less than 600,000 units. That's over 500,000 units. I mean, so if you sold 450,000 units, you were like, that's not very good, is it? So it was a very hard time to be a young fledgling rock and roll band at that point in time, because the pressure to deliver was insane. And most bands didn't live up to it. A lot of great, great bands got the axe. And it's just unfortunate. And of course, you take it personally. There's no way you're not going to take it personally. So now after doing, the impossible to get there, you're told to leave. And it's so it was a very, very, very difficult time, and very hard to keep your morale up. But we did, and we kept going, and we went back into the DIY world. And the one nice thing about the DIY world, in terms of this kind of music and stuff, is that you get to do what you want, and you get to work, and you don't have to be waiting around your house. There's nothing worse in life than waiting for a phone call that ain't coming. It's a horrible thing that everybody in this, dancers, actresses, whatever, whoever's life depends on somebody else saying, okay, you're hired, you can work, we're going to put you, we're going to do your this, or you're going to get that, or whatever. And that's why a lot of people don't even want to go into that. And now today you have people that can bypass it entirely. They don't even need a record company. They go viral through Instagram or what is it, TikTok or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in a way, I forget the music. I love the thumb in the air thing. Like, yeah, record company, go screw yourself. We don't need you. And then, of course, anyway, go ahead. I don't want to go on that point. But
I was gonna say,
yes.
On one hand, technology has allowed us the freedom to where you no longer have to have a label to make a record.
Right.
On the other hand, so that part of it has been made easier for the artist. On the other hand, breaking through is even harder than it was, because whereas before you had X amount of competition with people with record deals.
Sure.
Now it's anybody who can put themselves out there in social media has a microscopic chance of getting through. But so it's like anything else. You got the yin and the yang.
Yeah, it's true. And that's why at this point in my life, I just focus on what I'm doing, my music, getting it out there. And I don't really want to compete with anybody per se. I just want people. And fortunately, again, this is the good part, the lucky part. My fans will get my record. However they have to get it, they will get it. And I'm fairly certain they will all enjoy it. And for me, that makes it a success.
Yeah. Well, before we move on too far, looking back at the Columbia era, what are a few of the songs that you did during that time that you think truly crystallize what you were trying to do?
Well, I cannot discount the fact that, the first album is just a joyous piece of rock and roll. And I don't really look at it as like I did it by myself, because I didn't. I had a great band. Steve Huff was a fabulous partner. Bruce Botnick was an incredible producer. And, you do things in life, and sometimes the stars line up. It can be whatever, road trips, projects, relationships, whatever, where everything lines up. All the ingredients are right. Everything that could go wrong doesn't, and everything that could go right does. And for the most part on that record, it's just fabulous. Now, there are a lot of songs that could have been a lot bigger. I mean, Rock and Roll Girl could have been an anthem, and I Don't Fit In, and Don't Wait Up. And but the second album too has its great moments of glory. I mean, On the Highway, That's What Life Is All About, Crime Won't Help, Dreamin'. It's I don't know. It's hard to say. Those are the two albums we did with Columbia. Those two albums benefit the reach they got because they were released by a major record label was tremendous. So I have that to be thankful for. Those records were released all over the world. And so, I really, listen, I think in a way it's better to be here wanting more than better to be here being, well, I've done it all and it's over. So I still have a lot of things to look forward to in my book for me that keep me going. Things that, I still want to have a top 10 hit record. I may never get one, but that's okay. But I still want to have one, and that keeps me going. and I keep thinking about writing that next great song and all that stuff. And I love playing music. I'm rehearsing the new band to do some shows now. And man, when we sit there and we go through these songs and the old ones and the new ones, and we lock in, I go, damn, man, this stuff is great. I just want people to hear it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then I try to keep the rest at bay. I don't want to be bitter, and I don't want to be angry or mad, or, I'm lucky. I have to keep reminding myself. My girlfriend does it all the time. What are you moaning about? You got to, think about the good stuff. And there's a lot of good stuff. So I'll be honest.
well, here's the thing. Yeah, this is how I look at it. We all have those things, to whatever scale or degree that set us back. Yeah,
Sure.
you can either learn from it, or you can, focus on it, and all your positive energy gets waylaid by the negativity.
Right.
So, we all have a choice. Do we go, mope about our, bad things, or do we just say, hey, lesson learned, and then move on?
Oh, wait a minute. Am I paying for this session?
No, but if you're willing to.
Am I supposed to get on the couch now? No, I couldn't agree with you more. And it's important, and I do that, and I guess we all need to do that. I do it every night when I watch the news. I go, Jesus Christ, thank God, I am lucky compared to what I'm watching on TV. So yes, you're exactly right. And listen, it's fun to be fun, and it's good to be good, and just go out and have a good time.
In the beginning where you're talking about, people being nice, to treating each other well. It doesn't cost anything to be nice to people.
No, and I make a big point. In my daily life, because a lot of times a friend of mine people say hello, how are you, but they don't even wait for the answer. And I go, yeah, you're right. So when I say hello, how are you to people that maybe I don't even know, and I wait for them to answer me instead of to keep going. And yes, I think it's important. I really try to. I want to be a friendly person to all the paths that I cross.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well,
Yeah,
say,
it's good.
at the start of the conversation, Paul, we were talking about how radio used to have play, one station. You could hear four different genres in four
Sure.
consecutive songs.
Sure.
In your work, in the ensuing years, you have been able to incorporate more of those other styles into your music.
Well,
In doing so,
that's. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say, so you've been able to take all those things that we talked about and incorporate them, which has kept your music new and fresh, all these years later.
Well, yeah, that's again just good luck. Obviously, uh, what happens, like you do the first album, let's say, and everybody wants to just hear more rock and roll girl, more don't wait up, more of the fast songs, more of the fast songs, more of the fast songs. And then there comes to a point, where you're writing, and then you're not writing all the same song all the time. And then it becomes a question of, plus for me, all those offshoots or, different sounds or flavors, you might say, are all of music that I love. Like I said, Hank Williams or Ray Charles or this, that, and the other thing. So yeah, to me, I never take a good song for granted. I don't know how I do it. I consider myself like a fishing musician. You keep the bait on the hook and the hook in the water, and you might get something. And that's really my philosophy. I mean, You Won't Be Happy is like I think the second song I wrote. I, to this day, don't know what the names of those chords are because they're a funny chord progression. So I don't come from it from like a very schooled musical stance. Like I studied theory and studied all this, even though I did go to Juilliard. It's me. It's more gut energy. I play folk guitar, folk chords, E, A, D, G, C, and F. And an occasional, now I can do bar chords, but basically it's trying to get those simple block chords and get that great melody going over it. And man, when you get it, it's such a high.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, you mentioned Hank Williams. What are some of the things that you've been able to cull from his songwriting that have impacted how you write?
I don't really know specifically. I don't know if I can answer that. I mean, I love his approach. I mean, first of all, he rarely had a drummer. Most of those percussion sounds were played by acoustic guitars. But I think the thing that attracted me the most about Hank Williams was his storytelling. Hey, good looking, what you so simple. How about cooking something up with me? Or I'm so lonesome I could cry, or a collage. Just the stories that he told. In fact, really, all of these things for me distill down to one thing that my producer, my first album, Bruce Botnick, told me and taught me. And it's something I kept very front and center on this record, more so almost than any of my other recent records, because I had time to think about it. Bruce would always say the same thing. Tell me a story and give me a performance. Believe me, as an artist, if you can do that in a recording, you're going to be okay. No matter what else happens. If you tell somebody a story and you give them a performance, you're way ahead of them.
Yep.
And that's what Can't Go Back does. That's what Under the Spanish Sun does. That's what a lot of these songs do. And now my storytelling is very short and compact and to the point. I don't get too heavy. I don't get too deep. But I try to cover my own little terrain.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, getting to the new record, why don't we delve into that? You open it with a song of Jack's.
Love that song. The minute I started playing that song, I knew in my bones that was going to be the lead track, and that was going to be the vibe of the record, and that was going to be what kind of pulled the whole thing together. Very rarely do I have a title for an album. Usually you do the album and they go, well, what's it called? And you go, oh, shit, I don't know. The Kids Are the Same. I should have called the second album Will You Listen? But I call it the Kids Are the Same. So naming albums is always, problematic because I don't do concept albums per se. So, but this one, it was a no-brainer. And because and it changed a little bit. In the beginning, it was like stand back, like we're in a reflective time in our lives collectively. And then I realized, no, you are. And that's why the cover and the whole thing pulls together. I'm standing back and taking a good look at my life. And that song helped me do that. And then the rest of the record is all the DNA that I'm standing back and looking at. and that encompasses everything. I mean, the two covers per se, they're really from my own world, is Stand Back and Will You Come Through? And they're both examples of how I developed as a songwriter. That's where we started. That was our idea of how good you had to be. And it sprang from that. So those are the kind of like the goalposts of what I was trying to do.
Yeah. You got a lot of folks playing with you on this record too.
Grand slam on that level. Again, necessity is the mother of invention. I was here in New York. I really shut down at the beginning of the pandemic, and I did not do any performing at all for quite a long time. So I didn't have an active band, and I wasn't working with anybody. And then I was trying to make an album. So I called a few people here, but, with scheduling and everything. And then I said, it really started with one phone call to my friend Chris Von Snyder in California. And he was like, yeah, I'll get together with Prairie and we'll work the whole thing up. And I was going, right, that's great. And then I called Ronnie and it was like, sure thing. Then I thought, I knew Ron was working at a studio in Austin from 2020. And I knew Steve was active. And I just called them one at a time. And then I called Dwight. And Dwight was like, yeah, whatever you need. And Richard Mazzarella put the package of Richard X. Heyman and Richard and Michael together. Probably in the course of 2 or 3 days, the whole thing was set. And the whole process of making that album, the whole thing went down in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. The recording and everything. Then the mixing was done later by Jim at home, I don't know, a couple of weeks after the fact. But the recording itself took about 5 or 6 days, and all the additional tracking around the country, 2 or 3 days more. And, within 8 or 9 days, all the recording was finished.
Now, did you and Dwight get to play in the studio together?
No, that was the beauty of this whole thing. I mean, it was, again, it's like the stars lining up. I told myself, look, because, when you're a band leader and you write your own material and you put your bands together for many, many years, you do fall into the micromanaging trap. You want to control everything. You want to make sure everything is done the way you're seeing it. And I told myself, look, you're inviting all these incredibly talented people to play on your record. You're just going to have to take what they give you. You may edit it a little bit, but basically it's not like it's a one-shot deal. They're going to send you the tracks, and it wasn't either you use it or don't use it. I couldn't even cross that. I can't invite somebody to play and then not use it. So I was like, just tell yourself that you're going to like it. And I did, and I did, and I do. And it's great. Yeah. So basically, because these people would say, okay, Paul, well, what do you want? And I said, just do what you do. Do your thing. I'm asking you to play on this song because I know your instincts will guide you right. And that was the only thing that I really got to pat myself on the back about, is I paired the right musicians to the right song. What Ron Flint and Steve Allen of 2020 did on the 2 songs they performed, One Hill and I'm Home and Can't Go Back, absolutely fabulous. Nobody would have done a better job than that. And the same with Shoes on the 2 songs they sang on. And Dwight Twilley, I had one shot at Dwight, and that was the perfect shot.
Yeah.
And Richard X. Heyman. Richard plays piano on Westbound, and the background vocals they do on Westbound and Stand Back, fabulous, just fabulous. So I got very, very lucky.
How about I'm the Only One for You?
Okay, that's a very special song to me because my brother wrote it. It's a song that's been in our family for many, many years. And my mom recently passed away, and that was one of her favorite songs. That's not why I did it. It's one of the reasons why I did it. My mom was always, she's a big fan. And of course, we would sing and play it together. Of course, that made my mother so happy. And she said, you boys, you really need to record that, boys. And I used to say, when my brother played, I said, Patrick, man, that is a damn good song. God, that's a good song. And my brother doesn't really have an active recording career. He's never had a band per se. So the song just sat around, and it goes to that saying that some people say, is that everybody has at least one good song in. And my brother has more than one good songs, but that's one of his best songs. And when I was doing this album, and I didn't have to think about it a lot. Everything just came to me. I knew I wanted to do that song. I needed to figure out how to do it. It's the only time in my life I've ever used a capo. It's the only time I've ever recorded with a capo. And it just gave it that magical acoustic sound that you get when you use a capo. And then what Ron and Steve did to it even made it more so. And it's a beautiful song about, we have a summer home in Montauk that my family's been, for 3 generations, been going to. Montauk has a lot of hills. And my brother used to go out all night long on an old rusty bike with no speeds. And there was a set of hills to get home. And when you live and you do that every night in the summer, those hills by heart. And it's like the last one. It's like, okay, one more hill and I'm home. And it's such a beautiful sentiment. And so that's what it's about. And again, in the inner group of people, some of the wives and girlfriends of the musicians, that's their favorite song. So that makes me happy because I know it touches the same thing in them that it touches in me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you, on Don't Take It So Hard, you've got kind of a Dwayne Eddy guitar thing going on that.
That's another song that's been in the song chest.
Yeah. Well, as a huge Dwayne Eddy fan, anything I hear that has that, I'm sold immediately. But yeah, I'm
Me
partial to
too.
that.
That's why we did it. If you could hear the demo that Steve and I made in 1982, you know how there's demos that you're never going to get it better than the demo. You just not. You could have the most expensive studio in the world, the best producer in the world. It just something is not going to capture that excitement and energy and atmosphere that you just got by accident. And that's one of those songs. But I think also some songs you don't realize what they mean until afterwards. That song is so perfect for these times. Everybody is suffering and everybody is like going through shit. Everybody is trying to, navigate very difficult times. So
Yeah.
it's a good song for now.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, and then so you hit on one of my faves with Dwayne Eddy with that track, and then uh Peter's "Will You Come Through" has got that Buddy
Fantastic.
Holly thing, which
Yeah,
is
that's definitely a part of my canon. That's what life is all about. I have several songs that mine that, and I love it, and I'll always love
hmm uh, you can't go wrong. So,
it. No,
but
yeah.
like on Liverpool though, you go a different direction with it, and you've got that lilting melody to it. What's the story on
There,
Liverpool?
there are so many songs on this record that I have been dying to get out, and that I'm so happy we got good recordings of. Liverpool is one of them. Liverpool, I wrote in like 90, I don't know, 92 or 93. I was in Liverpool for 3 days, staying with Andy from Pink Moon Records. And we were just walking around, and everywhere you go is where the Beatles were. Everywhere, every pub. There's a picture of John, Paul, George, and, standing there at the bar, sitting. This is where they sat. This is where they did this. And of course, in Liverpool, people drink until the cows come home. So uh, I wrote that song either while I was there or shortly after I was there. And it just sat around. I could never figure out how to do it. It was a very awkward hand position on the guitar, the fingering of it. I finally figured it out now after I recorded it. But then when we put the harpsichord on it and Joey put his 12 string on it and Paul and his Stingo put the harmonies and then Shoes put their harmonies on it, it was like, oh man, it's just everything I wanted to say. I just love it. And that's what it's like there. It's always raining and the streets are glistening in the evening when you walk around. So it's just a very taking the train from Lime Street Station. I mean, if you're a Beatle fan and you go there, that's kind of what's going through your mind the whole time.
hmm Yeah. Well, earlier you mentioned "Under the Spanish Sun," and the acoustic guitar. That's really nice.
That's Michael Mazzarella from the Rooks. He is so talented. Again, I called Michael up out of the blue. We hadn't talked in maybe 10 years. And he was the last call I made. And I said, damn, I think I saw him post something. And he's doing all these acoustic guitar things that he does at home. And I said, I got to give Michael a call because we've always been, we've always enjoyed each other's company. I call him up. And he goes, Paul, what's up? What do you need? I said, because he lives out of town. I said, any chance you could come to New York? He said, yeah, sure. What do you want? And he put the thing with Richard together. And then I said, well, I got this song I'd really love to hear you play acoustic on. He said, tell me. And he came up with that absolutely gorgeous acoustic guitar part for Spanish Sun. And it was just so, I don't know, I've been trying to get these songs out for so many years to finally hear them being done right and cohesively and sonically full and stuff. It just was very emotional for me to finally get them, in a place that I thought, because I've always believed in these songs, but they never really got the light of day. And now they do. Now, there may be better versions of some of these songs coming down the pike, but these are good enough for people to know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And Spanish Sun is about, I spent many lovely years in Spain. I went to Spain 10 years after Franco, and it was unbelievable. I mean, it was unbelievable. The whole society was bursting on every level, at every seam, the arts, this, that, and everything. People were having fun, staying out all night. There was no crime. Money, everybody had money. Money was, if you didn't have money, the guy next to you would pay for your drink. He didn't even have to know who you were. It didn't matter. It just didn't matter. It's hard to understand, but it just was like they were all in love with life and having fun. And they went out 7 days a week. Nobody would be home watching TV. I mean, nobody. People 90 years old were out, and kids 6-year-old were with their parents at the bar, and nobody cared. Not that the kids were drinking and getting drunk. They were just, I don't know, playing or doing whatever they were doing. And not in the middle of the night. I'm just saying, as a society, they had none of that. No, kids, you're not allowed in here. No, you can't do this. You can't do that. That's in fact, I took my first wife back to America in 1987, and she was like, Jesus Christ, Paul, I thought America was free. It's just one endless list of, no, you can't do that, ma'am. No, get that kid out of here, ma'am. No, can't. No drinks on Sunday or whatever. It's like, holy shit. Mm-hmm. So, and I went from that kind of lifestyle in Madrid to Redding, California. And it was a culture shock, even for me, because we had been out of the country for long enough that things had significantly changed. So, that was like, I didn't know when I had it good. I was there, everything was great, and I decided I had to come back home.
Yeah, well,
but Spain is very, very special.
Yeah, I was saying Spain loves American rock and roll.
Probably of the handful of countries in Europe that do, like Italy and France, I would say Spain's on the top in terms of U.S. bands, American bands that tour through Europe. I don't think one of them is going to say that Spain isn't their favorite place to go to. Just the treatment you get and the knowledge base that the fans have. They know more about our music than we do, generally speaking. And their record collections are more extensive than ours. I mean, everybody has, they have record collections to die for.
Yeah, that's exactly what Kurt Baker was saying when he was on.
Who?
Yeah. Kurt Baker.
Who? Oh, yeah,
you know him.
Of course, he's living there right now as we speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, tell me this, Paul. Is there anything, any other thoughts on the record you want to make sure that we touch on here?
Listen to it. Hopefully buy it. Buy it from a record store. I really rather have people go to stores and buy it because it's good for the store. It's good for me. It's good for the label. And it's good for the, it's good for the customer. Record stores love you. They need you. They want to see your bodies. People who run record stores, they're doing it because they love music. So you should give them some love back.
Absolutely. We don't want to get to the point where music is solely available online.
Yeah. It's important. And the record companies, these small labels, it's a labor of love, and anybody, you can't confuse what a small label like Gem does with what like CBS or Warner Brothers or these big labels do. These record companies, they're not subsidized. It's very difficult for them to do all the things they need to do. Some of them are staffed by 1 or 2 people, and they're really music people. Mm-hmm. And so they need your support, and there's no reason why you shouldn't give it to them. And what are we talking about? Even if it's a few bucks more, a few bucks is a few bucks. And it, everybody wants to have that satisfaction of getting some kind of fruit from your labor.
Yeah. Well, tell me this, Paul, as we're talking about record stores. What was your go-to record store?
I say the one that was really made a big impact on me was when I was in San Francisco with the Nerves. We would go to Aquarius Records in North Beach all the time. And that guy was so supportive. In fact, he's the one that introduced us to Bomb Records in Los Angeles and Greg Shaw. And that was one of the stores that really made a difference in my life.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we got thrown out of all the Tower records.
Now, growing up, was the record store like a regular haunt for you?
I used to go to Crazy Eddie's here in New York, and because they had 2 albums for $3, and I thought that was a pretty good deal.
Yeah,
they were in the when I was living with my dad in the West Village. they had a store right on like Greenwich and 6th Avenue. And I used to go there a lot.
Tell me this. Do you remember the first album that you bought with your own money?
Yeah. Led Zeppelin, Graffiti, and Are You Experienced?
Now, do you still have those records?
A definite no. Those are in the ether now.
Yeah. Now, do you still collect vinyl though?
No, just my own for merch. I live in New York, and I live in New York, and I don't have a ton of space, and it's just hard to keep. And I to tell you the truth, people say they want to give me their LP or their CD, and I say no, just send it to me electronically, because that's how I listen to everything on my tablet or my phone. I know that's terrible. I mean, I do have a really good stereo that I can plug it into. I have great speakers, and I have an old Sony amp, a 70s amp that's nice and warm, and I listen like that. But space is at a premium when you live in a small apartment, so that's the most comfortable thing for me, and I have tons of music on my devices.
Yeah,
and I tell the musicians, keep your stuff and sell it at the merch table, which I believe in. I sell a lot of stuff at the merch table.
Mm-hmm. Well, as we're talking about Zeppelin and Hendrix, going from older stuff, what was some of the last new bands or singers that you've stumbled on that really wowed you?
Oh, that's a trick question now, isn't it?
Not that I'm looking for you to offend
Taylor
somebody.
Taylor Swift and Beyonce. I don't know. It's hard for me to say the last people that I listened to. I know their stuff because I do. Listen, I'm not jaded and I'm not a prick. If I hear something that's good, I dig it. You caught me off guard. I always not hated. I always disliked that question because I always wanted to say something cool, and I was never really sure what to say, because to tell you the truth, when you write your own music, especially when I was younger, that's all I thought about was our stuff and how to get it out there and how to do it. So I didn't spend a lot of time listening to the competition, but I'm sure there's good stuff out there. There's always good stuff out there. And I will say this, I spent 10 years or so touring the United States constantly with tons of up and coming bands. I would meet bands at shows like Sherbert or Parasite Diet or Gentleman Jesse or whatever. I said, come on, let's go on the road. And, 2 weeks later, we're touring together. And I prided myself, and I'm very proud of the fact that I was a real supportive figure to these younger bands. And my philosophy was get out and tour. And by the end of that tour, you're going to be a real band. And it's true. I would go out with bands that had barely played live, and we would do 20 dates. And on the end of the tour, I'd say, listen to these guys, man. They really got it together now. They're a rocking band. And I was very happy about that. And they know who they are, and they talk about me, and they're all out there. And I'm proud of that.
Yeah. Well, tell me this, Paul. When you guys were performing as the opening act for folks, what's one of the best memories you have of those performances?
Well, let's see. We opened up for the Police at the Palais des Sports in Paris. That was probably one of the biggest shows I've ever done. It was 6,000 people, and it was a mind blower. I mean, I was like, oh my God. They were carrying girls out on stretchers. It was just insane. That was a great show. We did some shows with the Jam, which were great. We did a lot of shows with Eddie Money, which were fantastic. And Huey Lewis. We did a lot of shows out in California because we were managed by Bill Graham, and they were great shows. Played with Eddie Money at the Greek, I think. We played with Devo at the Greek, and opened up for The Cure here in New York at Harrah's. That was a great show. Played with Lords of the New Church several times. That was fun. Steve Baders, he was crazy. So yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of good stuff over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, tell me this, Paul. Is there anything that we haven't touched on yet that you want to do? Make sure we
No,
do before we wrap this thing up.
no, I think we're good. I think you were very kind to let me go on and on about my stuff, and I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very excited for the new record. I hope people listen to it and enjoy it.
Absolutely. Well, see, you've got a little something for everybody on there. Yeah, and yet it's
That's good.
all you. I mean, you hear it, you know
Oh, yeah.
who it is.
Yes, sir.
So, all right. Well, on that note, we'll bring this one to a close. Paul, thanks for taking the time to join us here.
Thank you, Michael, and keep on rocking.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.
Adios.
This has been Music Night at the Majestic with Michael Boswell. If you enjoyed this edition of Music Night at the Majestic, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and at musicnight.net. Music Night at the Majestic is a copyright production of Starliner Media. Any use of the accounts and descriptions of this program, its audio or visual content, without the express written consent of Starliner Media is prohibited. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you next time for Music Night at the Majestic. This is your announcer speaking. Starliner Media.